And now, the Man in Black takes from his files another case history of an attempt to commit the perfect crime.
Good evening. This is the Man in Black. A year ago tonight, an innocent man was murdered in a small New England village. He was murdered by Clyde Ross. Listen to what happened in Clyde's own words, or he was executed. As I walked across the village square toward the church, I knew I was going to murder old man Hanson, the good sexton, the church bell ringer. Oh, it was going to be so simple and easy. A couple of things left to do first, and that was all. One was to see Father Vincent and tell him how worried I was about Hanson, that he was too old to be climbing the tower to ring the bell, that he'd slip someday and have a bad fall down the stairs, that he might even fall out of the belfry. I knew how Father Vincent would react, and he did, just as I expected. I even remember how he said it.
"Why, we cannot retire the old man as sexton, my son. Why, next to you, this is his whole life."
And I remember how I told him that, sure, he was so right, but that I loved Hanson like a father and worried about him. Well, I left it at that and went to walk the old sexton home. I lived with him, you see, but he wasn't my father. Oh, no, he was just an old goof whose wife had died 5 years ago, and he'd taken me in off the streets. Frankly, I hated the sight of him. But the old man was loaded. He'd saved all kinds of money, and no one to leave it to. So I buttered him up for a year or so and got it all fixed legally. I inherited his money when the old man croaked. Yeah, I was going to fix that, too. All I needed was a good simple plan and a witness to say I was somewhere else when it happened. All was easy. First, old Hanson was going to fall out of the church belfry and kill himself. He was going to fall out. Yeah, because I was going to push him. Second, Henry Freckleton was going to be the witness to say I was somewhere else. Henry has a hamburger stand at the edge of town, and for months in advance, at the same time, every Thursday evening, I'd drive past Henry's and honk and wave at him. He knew I was on my way to Bedford. That's a town about 10 miles away, to see a movie. So every Thursday, Henry'd wave me out of town, and a couple hours later, he'd wave me back. So it was established where I went every Thursday night. Clever? But one night, the big night, I didn't go to Bedford. I drove past Henry's all right, but then I circled back on a little wagon road that led to the woods right behind the church. I hid my car there, and in a few minutes I was silently climbing the narrow steps to the belfry. Old Hanson just begun to pull the bell when he saw me, and he smiled at me. I smiled back happily. Waited till he pulled the bell for the last time, and then I jumped him quick and pushed him over. Just a little push. He fell without a cry. And it seemed right somehow that he landed in the cemetery at the side of the church. Afterwards, I never heard it so quiet. All the way back through the woods to the car, it was as quiet as death. And then I was right on time for Henry's wave when I drove back into town. I knew then the circle was complete. The crime was perfect.
Clyde Ross finished his story and said no more. The end is well known. 2 short days later, Clyde was arrested for the murder of the old sexton. Where had he made his mistake? By telling Father Vincent of his concern for the sexton's safety. Because he'd been so convincing, the good father took the problem to the sexton himself. And old Hanson, touched by Clyde's obvious love for him, devised a signal to assure Father Vincent that all was well. He simply rang the church bell 4 extra times to signify that he was not in danger, that Clyde was there.
The Man in Black has brought you from his files another case history of an attempt to commit the perfect crime. This is the CBS Radio Network.